All right. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Jerry Raehal. He is the Chief Growth Officer of OnePress, powered by the Nebraska Press Association. We were kind of chatting. He was already had some great stuff for me before we were officially rolling. So I thought I'd hop on and do an intro. Jerry, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for some of the questions.
Yeah, yeah. Just to set the stage, I'd love it if you could just tell you this is our first time meeting. Tell me and the audience a little bit about your background and your career and kind of what's brought you where you
Y-
are now.
Yeah, I'm hopefully like this can be a long and boring, so I'll try to not make it long and boring, but fail. But I mean, I've loved newspapers. I've always been curious. That's probably been the one thing I remember as a kid driving around and going from town to town and wondering about that community and wondering how that newspaper runs. I don't know why I had that thought process and got involved with my high school newspaper. We were the only weekly high school paper in the Colorado, New Mexico region, which was awesome to be part of. And then went to college, and my degree was in journalism I started off with, and then got to college and changed my major like 12 times because every time I took a class, I'm like, that is so fascinating. I want to learn more about that. And ultimately, I came to learn I just like to learn. And so that curiosity, at first after college, I didn't go into industry right away. I did some other jobs, but decided like once my wife graduated from college, what I really want to do. And the one thing I thought about that never felt like a job was working for my college paper. My roommates thought I was crazy because I spent so much time at the college paper. Like, you work too much, and I never thought of it as work. And so, took a pay cut, went to go work for the Rollins Daily Times as a sports reporter. My curiosity, like I love sports, wanted to be a Sports Illustrated writer initially, but I just got curious about how other forms of reporting went, and that led me into becoming an editor in Oregon and Colorado, and then back to Rollins as the publisher. I became curious about and thought I could help a community paper become more than a community paper. And we did some really cool things in Rollins at that time. And during a deficit, 2008, when we were in kind of a downturn, Rollins had four of its five most profitable years in its history. In part because we really focused on local journalism, like better journalism, not trying to cut our way to profit, but trying to focus on putting out a better product. And that led me to Laramie, and we did a similar thing there, where we took a company that was in distress. It had great staffs. I mean, to be real clear, like this wasn't me. This was the other people around me who bought into a vision and really took it to the next level and took a company that had been losing money to being fairly profitable pretty quickly. And then Colorado Press came open, and there's some reasons for that, but I became really curious about like the industry as a whole. And one of the things I realized is I wasn't very digital advertising savvy, and the Wyoming landscape was not going to help me learn more about that. And so it was a tough decision, but left Laramie and went to Colorado Press, and really that was a company in distress, and we kind of helped turn that ship around and got it kind of back on stable ground. Really, I feel like a lot of great members did some great things I was saying beforehand about, expanding our membership, making it more inclusive of the written word of journalism as opposed to you have a legal permit and that makes you a real newspaper. You had some very fun conventions, but then, Glenwood Springs came a calling, and I started thinking maybe I could take it to the micro level. And so I went to Glenwood and I did some work there and loved Glenwood, but COVID hit and there were some challenges there, and, had some decisions to make, and ultimately that led me to Louisiana to be their executive director. Um, and again, did some really cool things in Louisiana, but ultimately, like, and all this stuff is curiosity driven, right? Like, I just like learning about this stuff and helping come up with the question of how can we do this better? Or like public notices, like if we don't figure something out on how to deal with this, like how can we do this in a way that, maintains public notices in a third party verifiable spot and protects the public at large? And not just about how do we keep it in newspapers, but how do we protect the community? Like, 'cause I
Hmm.
think one of the challenges that I've seen in the newspaper industry is too often we focus on revenue. We don't focus enough on the community. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you focus on revenue and you don't focus on the community, you kind of miss your mission. And again, I'm not saying that's right. That's just my view on it. And then family ultimately led me to Nebraska. Like, my family's from Colorado. My parents are aging. My wife's parents are aging. I came to a point where I just went to my bosses, my board of directors in Louisiana, and said in 8 months, I'll be closer to family. I can't be this far away, and, had a very good transition with them so they could find someone, and I just started calling around and called Nebraska Press, and they're like, "Hey, we need someone to come help. Do you mind just working on the growth side of it, the revenue side for a while?" And I said, "That would be great." And so came out here and have been doing that, right? Trying to help with the revenue side of for both the press association, but also for our members. It's a long
Awesome,
story.
awesome.
Cut it how you
Yeah,
want.
no. No, it's great. It's funny geographically, like we must have bumped into each other before. I'm in Colorado my whole life. My wife went to school in Laramie. She's from Powell, Wyoming.
Okay.
Like pretty much everywhere you said, I'm like, oh yeah, been there, been there. I wonder
Yep.
where I went
Yep.
to high school. My sister-in-law went to school at UNC when I was
Where I
looking
went to
on your
school.
stuff and everything. Yeah, I was looking on your LinkedIn, so it's just kind of we've been Forrest Gumping our way around each other all this time. So about OnePress, you kind of led up to how you got there, your winding story. Talk a little bit about it. It says it's powered by the Nebraska
Yeah.
Press. How's that? What's the mechanics there? And what's your kind of day to day look like? What do you guys do there? Yeah.
So most press associations are C3 or press associate trade associations, and most of them own an advertising service,
Okay.
a for-profit subsidiary of that, and that's what OnePress is. Up until about 5 years ago, it was called Nebraska Press Advertising Services. This is pretty standard, par for the course. They changed the name a couple years ago with it, and so OnePress is a marketing agency on behalf of Nebraska Press. Our niche is our members. We do try to offer a fuller scope of that. And so with that, like right now, so part of it is like being able to offer a one-stop buy to clients for newspaper media, but also trying to figure out what are new ways and creative ways that we can help members grow revenue and work with our clients. So for example, we create in Louisiana, we started off with a branded content network. So branded content's pretty popular, but
Hmm.
it's really hard to buy at mass. And we did that in Louisiana, and we came here and did it again. I think a little more refined approach. But the idea is we can now the idea is selling to the client the full newspaper audience, print, digital, social. Because really, when you start looking at like studies, when you start looking at studies about readership, when you start factoring in all the way people get newspaper media, it's a large amount of people. Like, it really is. Like, I think a lot of people think of newspapers, print, open up, but it's also reading on your phone, and it's also
Hmm.
reading on social, and it's reading in all these ways. And so when we start looking at how newspaper media is consumed, um, and so I'm trying to figure out that process. Like, how do we stop focusing in on just an aspect of what we do and get that audience involved? Because I think we're going to get to this question a little bit, but newspapers matter in a way that other mediums don't, and that statistically, I have the proof to back it up. So,
That's
as to
great.
my days and ways, we're a small operation. Like, every day is different. Some days I could be working on revenue ideas specific to newspapers. Some days I could do media placement. Some days I could be doing inbound, outbound marketing. My favorite days are the days we do in every other week sales calls with our members. So they call in, and there's a little bit of coaching going on and presenting of information, but then also a lot of ID sharing. What some of our smaller members are doing is amazing to me. Like there's a paper group in Nebraska that they make so much money on Facebook through the platform, creator platform concept. And they do it in a very authentic way. Like, they've changed the approach. And so, like, I did a show the other day, like comparing them and the interaction that they have with their 20,000 followers versus these major papers and how they present. And so
Right.
you know, I think sometimes we really need to look to our smaller papers to figure out the future as well. I think too often we think about, oh, look at the Washington Post or look at them and how they're doing it. Really, some of the best ideas I've seen have come from smaller papers and how they're approaching things.
That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to ask you to show me that example you talked about.
Yep,
I'm just
yep.
for my own curiosity with the Facebook creator marketplace, whatever you said it was. Very
Mhm.
cool. Uh, I just had something and it disappeared out of my head. Oh, I was just gonna comment on how you were saying, when you're talking about the data and how you think newspaper, but everybody, it's also on mobile, it's also on social, all this stuff these days. That's a big recurring theme on here where I had somebody on recently who said, we used to be weeklies and dailies, papers and everything. He's like, we're on the internet. Everybody's a daily now. You're
Yeah.
doing like breaking news, all this stuff now. So it's kind of, these things all kind of weave together.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot about lately is I've heard a lot of, for a long time, digital first, right? Like we want to be a digital
Hmm.
first platform. And I've kind of, and again, you as you gather more information, and I've kind of been big on digital. I think the biggest thing is papers need to be platform agnostic and just like deliver to their audience the quality stuff in the way that that audience reads it. And I think too often newspapers, will be like, we're print and we're going to take the print approach and distribute it that way across all platforms. And that doesn't work.
Hmm.
I think digital first, I've seen so many digital first publications abandon their print edition, um, and then realize that was their moneymaker. And so I just think that this idea of we're going to be something first, I go back to be community first, be audience
Right.
first,
Right.
right? Like if you're going to be anything, be that, and then let that dictate how you approach your platforms.
Yeah, you got to walk that line with the community and, like you were saying, revenue before.
Mhm,
My buddy John Garrett in Texas, he runs a company called Community for is it wait no Community Impact down in
mhm,
Texas. They're like the largest independent news. His thing when he came on the podcast was phygital. So they have a print product still, but
mhm.
it's daily on digital. I just like saying phygital. I guess that's why I wanted to bring it up. But similar stuff. Um, Okay, I had this question, because I'm guessing you would have a take on it, especially when you're coaching folks on sales calls and everything. And this is a pretty big issue in the, local news paper industry is why should an advertiser spend dollars locally on a newspaper when they can just dump it into Meta or into Google? You know what I mean? That's what small businesses are thinking of themselves. How would you answer that if somebody
Well, I
asked
think a
you?
couple things. I love this question, and we need to answer this question. First and foremost, local advertising works. I was in a government committee meeting hearing the other day with the Unclaimed Property Division talking about unclaimed property notices, and they said it works. When they run those notices in the paper, they see an uptick, right? You don't
Hmm.
get that very often in government meetings talking about like, yeah, we know it works. So we know it works, but if you care about your community, you should advertise in your paper because we know what happens when they close. And I'm going to just, more government waste, more local corruption, less effective schools, and other serious community problems. That's from the Federal Trade Commission. Higher deficits and costs, local newspapers hold government accountable and ultimately save the local taxpayers money. That's from the Journal of Financial Economics. The people with the least access to local news are often the most vulnerable, poorest, and the least educated and most isolated. That's from the University of Northern Colorado Journalism Media. Like we know that when newspapers close, that community is adversely impacted in ways it doesn't
Hmm.
realize. We don't when we think of cornerstone institutions, we often think of grocery stores or this or that. But honestly, like newspapers are one of the most important. And a lot of times when you see a newspaper close, it's one of the last standing foundational businesses left in the community. And so I think a lot of is made about newspapers closing, right? And it matters
Hmm.
because, and here's why: 50% of all original reporting comes from newspapers, despite making up only 25% of the ecosystem. So when you remove newspapers from the equation, you're removing 50% of all local original reporting. So what does radio report on then? What do these other people like? So many people are just taking what newspaper reporters have done and
Yep.
repurposing it. So it is the heartbeat of the news ecosystem. And again, we see that happen across line, and that leads into these other issues. Now, I want to be clear about when it comes to like, so I'm not saying don't advertise on Facebook or Meta. I'm not saying that at all. I think you got as a business, you got to do it. But I also think you need to understand like the value that your local paper has, both tangentially, but also in those intangible ways that impact your community in so many positive ways. And so I just like, in some way, like it works and it helps your community. Like at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. If you want advertising that helps your business and helps your community, that's where you should be.
Yeah, and I even see it as somebody chooses to go in the newspaper instead of just, Google, whatever. It's also a signal, to people that you are invested in the community. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that going back to I said earlier, like I like telling stories, and we as an industry do a horrific job at telling our story. A horrific job. We put in there, we're always the first to put in about a newspaper closure, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things I like to do, like, as I do meetings, um, with clients or with groups, and I'll ask these business owners, like, what's a good market share? What's a good market share? And, if they get 3%, 5%, when I start showing our readership data, when you start looking at print, digital, and social, 50% is a low end for most Nebraska newspapers, right? Like you're reaching 50% of the population through newspaper media on the low end. In some cases, like we have a newspaper here that has more subscribers and there are people who live in the county, right? Like we don't
Hmm.
tell those stories enough. We don't tell those stories nearly enough. We focus in on the demise. And a part of it, I think, goes back to a lot of people. The thing I hear a lot is like, I just want it like the old days. Well, those days are gone. They
Yeah,
are. I mean, and so either embrace the future, adapt, change, make some mistakes, have some successes, figure it out. But I think part of the challenge we have that I see a lot is just a lot of oh, Jerry, I just wish it was like the old days. I'm sorry, they're gone. And be part of the future or make room for people who can be.
that's great. That was like a clip machine segment there. I'm gonna have to turn that into some clips. Good
Oh.
stuff. How many members are there of the? Do you know offhand? Roughly. You don't have to have an
Yeah,
exact
we have
number.
a 130 plus. We have 128 print members and a couple of online 3 members, and then we have some are kind of our business affiliates as well. So
Okay. And yeah, because it's funny when I was talking about how we've run into each other. I also have family very all the way in the corner, but also in Nebraska. So I was just
okay,
curious if they're in a tiny, tiny town. But Benkelman, if
yeah,
you're
yeah, we
familiar,
have
yeah,
a paper there. Yeah, Scoop
do
Media.
we?
Yeah,
Oh, nice. I bet I know secondhand the people that run it because
yeah,
my my sister-in-law knows everybody there.
yeah. The Fredericksons.
Anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. Sorry. So the next question I had, because it's 2026, I'm legally required to ask you about AI because that's just what everybody talks about on every podcast in the world. What are your kind of overall thoughts on it? And I'm curious because you sit in a position where you talk to a lot of people at a lot of organizations, and
Yeah.
I'm curious what the conversations or what tools or what people are doing and thinking about the whole kind of ecosystem.
Well, I've heard you ask this question on other podcasts. I'm excited for it
Yeah.
because I
All
have
right.
both a very healthy hope and skepticism of AI.
Yeah.
I think as an industry, the mistake we've always made is we're late adopters. Like we don't like it. This web, it's going to ruin us. Like whatever it's going to be. And so I think we need to embrace it with a level of skepticism. I also think it's a great opportunity because there's so much hallucinations out there. Like this is an opportunity for newspapers to be that trusted source, right? Like don't
Hmm.
trust. I mean, like we need to capitalize on the fact that we are truth, whatever that means to each individual, but that we have trained journalists who are going out there and getting the news and providing it to you um, in a way that as objective as possible, depending on the media. I won't say that's true for every person, but that is by and large our mission, right? And so
Hmm.
I think as an industry, we need to try to do it. It's got a bunch of issues. I use it on a daily basis. I see it gets stuff wrong all the time. It gets stuff right all the time. It makes my job easier. I've thought a lot about like if I was a community newspaper, a small staff, like how I would use it, and one way that I would like Chat GPT. When I was a sports reporter, I came to learn like I wanted every story to be a home run, right? Every story to be great. And I came to realize not every story is
Right.
great. And so like I'm like, if I was gonna go to a city council meeting that was like I know nothing, and I just took my notes into Chat GPT and said, sort this for me, and then double check it and be done,
Hmm.
and it's copy edited, and you're done, and you can move on. Great, right? Like, how do we utilize it in a way? I wouldn't use it to like watch a video. But so I think there's just ways to utilize it. I think we need to figure out how to embrace it, make our job, as a tool, and also take advantage of the fact that it's not perfect and it's going to have limitations. And that's where we can step in and say, we'll provide the news. I would like to see AI pay its share for what it's been stealing from us.
Yeah.
I think that this idea that I've heard some people say like that are so opposed to it, like it's not going away. And it's got
Yep.
real problems. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying, like, I can wish the internet away if I wanted. I wouldn't, but it's not going away. It's our days and ways, and how do we take advantage of it? That's to me, the real question about AI is how do we take advantage of it for, to go back to that thing of connecting with our audiences.
Yeah. Great answer. I agree. I forget how you phrased it. Cautiously optimistic, but
Yeah.
also aware of. I think I was just talking to somebody earlier. I think that the hype is coming down just a little bit on AI, where it's gonna everybody can do everything all the time. You can just vibe code your own app about this. You could it's gonna do it. Nobody's gonna have to work anymore. Like some of that stuff has subsided a bit, and the reality of how it's useful and everything is kind of becoming a little more clear. How most people use it.
Mhm.
Like you said, it speeds up so much. I use it. It's just a new tool. I could not do my job in the same way I do it now without using it every day. But
Yeah.
I'm not unleashing it on the world to do stuff for me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think it's not only great for newspaper people, I think it's great for, like, I don't know if you ever deal with this, but some days I have to deal with email and my brain can't do it, and I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'll just type in a poorly written thing, like, here's what I wanna say.
Yep.
Don't worry about if it's spelled correctly, it'll fix it," and it puts out something that 80% of the time, I'm like, "Good," and I didn't have to, like,
Yep.
put that mental energy into that stuff. So I think it can be used in so many ways on so many different levels. Every tool is as much gives you as much power as you put into it.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Cool stuff. I've been asking this one a lot too. If you've listened to the podcast, you probably
Mm.
know. Just flash forward 5 years. Once again, you sit in a very nice spot of dealing with 130 plus organizations or whatever. So where do you see yourself? Where do you see, let's just say, like your members as, businesses? What trends do you see? What do you see the landscape playing out in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think a big thing is gonna be like, so right now we've been negotiating a law for the over the last year. Um, public notices for especially for small rural papers are such a big deal, and they're
Mm-hmm.
always kind of under attack. And one of the things we're working on right now would allow a traditional newspaper to switch to e-edition only and keep their public notices. And if that passes, we're going to stop hearing about conversations about newspaper closures. We're going to start hearing a lot more about newspaper transitions. Because for these small mom and pop shops, their biggest cost is their print, and that's only going up. And so to help public notices have both been they definitely are a great way to help inform the community and keep that newspaper viable and the community viable, but it's also in so many states it can be stop business, newspapers from coming up with new business ideas to approach things because you have to meet certain requirements. So to be able to expand that and change that, I think that would be great. That creates a good base because a lot of these really small communities, they don't have mom and pop shops. They don't have all these different things. And so to be viable, those are certain things that help. So I think my hope is, if we can get people to, I go back to what I said a little bit earlier about like, yeah, some people are late adopters and want things the old way. Like, if we can get people to say, hey, like, we can keep the old ways, but we can also approach this in new ways, then I think we have success. So I go back to what I said earlier. Like, when people say newspapers are dying, I kind of be like, I hope you better hope not. Like,
Right.
what does that mean for your community? Like, what does that mean if, when your schools perform worse or your health care gets worse because there's no one there keeping tabs on it or promoting or letting people know or who's promoting your community as a whole, like what happens, so there's so many benefits to a newspaper being in a community that I get there's day it's hard, like right now the economy is uncertain, things are crazy, but I'm also seeing some resurgence in print as well too. So I go back to what I said earlier is like being a bit platform agnostic. I think there's some need for tangible. I think there's some need for digital, and I think newspaper people need to be in a position to deliver on both. And that'd be my hope. Is that that's kind of been my goal through some of these sales calls that I'm doing with members is helping them figure out ways to make revenue in multiple pools. So, for example, that Facebook thing I was telling you about, I presented what one paper is doing and they're making money, and another paper they went through the process and they're getting $20 a month now, and it's only $20, but as she says, it's $20, right? Like, it's just
Right.
like you just start taking all those different piles, and again, and most of our members didn't know they could make money off of Facebook that way, and so I think my hope, going back to the question 5 years, I do hope there's a lot more sharing of industry insight amongst each other, 'cause what I've come to realize is so many of our members are doing great things, but they're in isolation, and one reason I like the this is more of a nerdy thing on my side of it, but like most press associations do conferences, but they're the worst way to learn. You go one time, you get all the stuff and you leave, you do nothing with it. So
Yep.
I love these sales calls because, like, it's a consistent, ongoing, you know, reminder of what things that they can do, and we're seeing progress. And so from my perspective, my hope OnePress continues to help our members succeed in a variety of ways, whether that's us selling ads or helping them and come up with laws that help them adopt business models better, or just helping them be better at their day-to-day job. Because at the end of the day, we can only be as good as our members. If our members don't embrace digital, we don't really have a future. If our members don't take care of their print, we don't
Right.
have a future. If our members don't understand how social helps them, like, type of deal. So I think it's incumbent upon creating more and more learning opportunities because knowledge is coming at us so fast now. It's hard to keep up. And if you don't have, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but like one of the things that blew my mind is, last year at our convention, we were talking about business plans. And I asked the room at our convention, how many of you guys have a business plan made in the last 5 years? And these are all smaller papers. And not one person raised their hand.
Hmm.
Right. And so we are so focused on working in the business, we never work on the business. And so part of my goal with these sales calls is giving our members time to work on the business, like to break their days and ways, think about larger things, how they can make money, and have people to bounce their ideas off of. Like, it's got to be a community effort amongst community papers to help us all succeed.
That's great. A few things on the public notices. I
Uh-huh.
love that you're thinking about it that way. Correct me if I'm wrong. You probably know better than me. Was it New Jersey or somebody kind of overhauled their laws in the last year or something? I feel like they made it to where it can be a digital publication. I could be wrong about this, and maybe you don't know.
I know Virginia created some laws where it could be different states have done different things. And honestly, like so
Okay.
many happen. Again, I tend to focus on the ones that I think are most, that make the most sense. I can't recall New Jersey.
Okay.
Um,
I could be.
I don't think
I
you're
see a
wrong.
lot of stories.
I mean,
Yeah.
the challenge with New Jersey is they don't have a press association.
Really? Hmm.
Yeah,
I did
they
not
have,
know that.
and it kind of so things going on in New Jersey get real muddy.
Crazy. I didn't know that. I've had a
Yeah.
few. I had somebody on. Or a few people on from New Jersey. I've got some friends out there. Interesting. Learn more. I learn more every day on this podcast. What one more thing I was curious about? You mentioned these sales calls a few times with your members. Um, could you clarify that a bit? Are you doing a sales call like with them to like a local business? Are they practicing with you? What does that mean exactly? I'm
So
kind
yeah,
of
every
curious.
other week, and I just want to make sure I'm not lying to you about the news. I don't. There's a website for them. I don't think it's active, but if I got
For New
that wrong,
Jersey,
I apologize. I know it's
it's all
not
good.
a very like it's been kind of they don't have an executive director.
Gotcha.
So what it is every so I'm going to credit my wife for some of this because she has her degree, her master's in lifelong learning education,
Okay.
and kind of brought it up to me. Like I'm a natural curious learner. Most people are not. Like so, I'll kind of like I want to learn that. I'll go on YouTube or wherever and just teach myself. And she's like,
You and
so
me are in the same bucket. My wife finds me at 2 a.m. looking at Wikipedia on a random thing in the middle of
yeah.
the night all the time. Yeah.
And only 10% of the population is like that. And so sometimes I get frustrated, but she's like, most people need that space. And so the idea is, we meet every 2 weeks. I try to keep it to 45 minutes to an hour. Starts off with like some random stats that I saw that they should be know about. One session, I had them fill out a needs analysis. We sat in silence for 20 minutes while they filled out documentation. We talked about it because they won't do it outside of there. Last time we had someone come present on CRMs because a lot of these smaller publications like don't know, right? Like they're just getting through their day. I mean, we have people who bought their papers, right out of college here, right? We have other people who, moved to their town and the person's like, I'm going to close it and they bought it and have no background in newspapers, right? And so
Right.
the idea is to create a space for them to learn about like in general, but the biggest thing, like I said, I go back to one of the things I've learned is just how effective some of our smaller publications have been with social media, like, and how that they're making money or creating engagement. Like one of our members created a Brews and News, which is fantastic. And and it's nothing fancy, but they did in their community. And then people are like, I want to sponsor that. Right. And all
Right.
they're doing is one guy, they start talking about that week's newspaper, right? And so I just these are ideas that we're sharing. And so there's some training going on. in general about sales and whatnot, but then also just a lot of, hey, I'm dealing with this. And so it's really just creating a community of it. And I've tried this in the past. In the past, I've tried like a monthly sales call or this or that. And it's very driven by like a speaker. And in the past, I've also tried a sales call once a month where it was very driven by just, hey, what do you want to talk about? And so this time around, I've tried to make it more frequent so it's on their calendar, but also we're going to have some structure, but some flexibility with it. And I think that has worked really well to do so. And I get a lot of positive comments about like, like people, because again, it's hard in this business at times to feel very down, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm not getting this. But then, I mean, the coolest thing is when people reach out to me like, hey, Jerry, I did that and it's working. And so, yeah, like I think it's, uh, you know, is it perfect? No. Are we trying something new and different and seeing what it does? And it may have its lifespan and end, and that might happen, but we got to do something. And I think the model that we traditionally try is badly outdated. And I mean that by press associations, once a year training, or, we're going to outsource this to news media campus and we're going to offer online. People don't go to that stuff. They don't. Like
Hmm.
if members say they want it, but they don't make the time to do it. And so I've tried a lot of different things and this has been the most successful. And honestly, those days are the best days of my week when I get to sit down and just listen to my members talk about what they're doing, their challenges, and how they're trying to grow. So I think you know, I'm an advocate for it.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's super helpful to other organizations, press associations, anybody that might be listening. So I love that kind of environment too. I'm guilty as charged. I mean, I'm not a news publisher, but sometimes I'll say like, yeah, I want to learn that. I want to do that. And then it just doesn't happen unless I'm, at a being held accountable or showing up to a call or something like that, on a
Yeah.
regular
How many
basis.
free webinars do you people sign up for and never attend?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And everything's still free. Again, my hope is to do it often enough that's on your calendar. I've come to find out once a month is not often enough. But two, like hopefully people find real value in it and they're sharing that with their other members, which we've had. Like the number of people who signed up for it has grown. The number who attend is about the same every week, but still better than anything else I've done before as far as training goes on a
That's
webinar
great.
basis.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. That's everything I had written down. Just tell me tell people where they can find you online. What do you want me to link to? What do you want me to promote in the show notes?
I mean, we're on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. OnePress is on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. If people professionally want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is a place to go. I don't tend to friend people on Facebook unless I really know them.
Right.
But and again, the bigger thing, if there's any clients out there looking for regional or national advertising, reach out. And again, if people want to just share ideas with me, like I'm always open to ideas about what they're doing, what seeing success with, and moving forward. But yeah, uh, you know, email me at jerry@onepressne.com or any of that other jazz. So always open to conversation.
Cool. And that'll all be linked in the show notes for this. So just go down and connect with Jerry. He's got a lot of good stuff to say. Jerry, thank you so much, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
Great to
Thank
meet
you.
you. Great to hear
Well,
all this stuff. Yeah.
I really
And
appreciate it.
yeah, you have a good one.
You too.